Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to an episode of Conqueror's Blade. So, today we are going to be taking a look at the Rattan Rangers, or the Mounted Crossbowmen, depending on what you want to call them. That is the wrong area of the tech tree. Here we are, the Rattan Rangers down here. So this is the Tier 5 unit that was released in the Rattan Resistance update a couple of months ago now. But with a lot of the changes we had to the tech tree with the start of the Season 2 update, they're now a lot more accessible because you used to have to go up through the Rattan Vipers, through this 25,000 honor point here, and it used to effectively work out along with the pikemen as well, a lot more expensive to be able to unlock these guys. And so the amount of honor required now is a lot lower. It's down to like around 50,000 or something like that, so it's really quite an accessible unit. And then, along with these tech tree changes that we got in Season 2, a lot of the top tier 5 units, these 5-star units, received the nerf. And one of the exceptions to that was these Rattan Rangers. And they are performing really rather well at the moment. So it was a unit I really wanted to unlock just to kind of try them out. And I've been playing for them for a while, and as it turns out, they do play rather nicely. They are certainly one of, if not the most dominant tier 5 unit, I would say, at the moment. So I certainly wanted to touch on them. Now, I just want to pre-qualify this video saying we will be looking at these guys again. I'm only level 14 with them at the moment. I know they go up to level 30, so I know there's a lot more veterancy line to unlock. This will be a particularly interesting one, adding the crossbow bolts on. So yeah, they are certainly going to be getting better than I'm finding them now, but the broad playstyle isn't going to change that much. The one thing I guess that will change is when I get down here and I get to the charge. Unlocking the charge, that pops change things up a little bit in the way that they play slightly. But up until that point, that is quite a long way away, so I didn't want this video to be another 2 or 3 months in the making, because I'm not going to be playing these guys full time, because I've got lots of other units I want to touch on. So that's why we're taking a look at them now. As I say, they will improve. There's a couple of interesting things. This end one, the damage reduction, the range damage reduction, as well as a little bit of range damage reduction down here, is going to kind of make them quite nice. They're a bit more resistant to missile fire, because they do suffer a little bit from missile damage. So why do I actually like them? What makes them such a good unit? Or how do they even play? Well, they're one of the... there aren't very many mounted ranged cavalry units in the game. And they get both this repeating crossbow, you can see in his hand here, and they get sort of a saber type thing as well. They're both fairly decent in melee and at ranged. Add on to the fact that it's a repeating crossbow, so they fire fast. They actually do pretty decent damage. If we're going to have a look at the veterancy points, you'll see the piercing damage in AP. Almost 1300 piercing damage, and actually decent armor penetration. And that is a really key point that enables them to do decent range damage. You get 15% range penetration upgrade here. I'm also running them with a 75 plus AP increase, and it can take their piercing armor penetration to well over 1,000. And that means actually stand a chance of piercing other heavier units' armor. And so you actually apply a reasonable amount of your damage, particularly if you start shooting from the back and stuff and get criticals. You do actually really good damage, and that's kind of rare on mounted archer units. So yeah, they do a lot of damage, combined with the fact they get a poison and bleed damage effect to their ranged weapons. So it just makes them a super effective unit. They get a good quantity of ammo. They're a 21-man unit, so they're quite a nice strength unit. They just get everything. And if they do get thrown into melee combat, they don't even do that badly. I mean, you get to see, look at their slashing statistics. They're really quite decent amounts of armor penetration, and still well over 1,000 slashing damage from there. And I've not even got to this bottom veterancy line, which sort of adds some increases to some of the charge damage, etc. further down, as well as some health increases and stuff like that. That is one thing they are a little bit lacking on, is health. 6,500, not a tremendous amount of health, and their defensive stats aren't all that great. I think I've thrown on a piercing defense. They're pretty vulnerable to ranged units. If they start getting shot at, they go down pretty quickly. So I've tried to buff this piercing defense up a little bit. It's a little bit of a forlorn hope. 650, not really enough to make a significant difference. But it's better than a poke in the eye, as the saying goes. So it means that all in all, they turn out to be this very fast, hard-hitting ranged unit, which can also engage in melee if it has to. And there isn't a lot that can counter that. If you can find a unit, say Halberdiers or someone out in the open without range support, then you can just munch them. You really can, and there's really nothing they can do about it. That's what makes them such a sort of devastating unit. they work in siege battles. I think they work perfectly well in siege battles. I have found much more success though in field battles. You know, the amount of open ground you get in field battles, it just really suits this unit. So I think we'll probably have a look at some field battles today and kind of hop into some of them and see how we get on. So yeah, with that, let's actually hop into a battle now and kind of actually see some of these guys in action. So we are into our battle with these Rattan Rangers. Loaded in, obviously, as I mentioned, on a field battle. And the battle's not been going too long. I just had a bit of a starting off with some pipe militia or something like that, I think. And now I've just switched over to these Rattan Rangers. So initially I go in, as soon as I go in, and there's quite a lot of stuff going on the B point. And that becomes my primary focus. I'm thinking, well, the B point is effectively our point. It's right next to our spawn. It's the one we really need to be owning. So I start to apply a bit of pressure. I got a little bit nervous about the enemy horses, and then the enemy peasants, or whatever they are, woodcutters, I think, charged in. Of course, just a little bit of micro. I could engage them in melee, but there's always the risk that I might use a lunate or something if that happens, and it's really not worth it when I can just sit at range and kill them like this. And you can see 20 of them are dead already. Now we move on to Halberdiers Sergeants, a much better tier 4 unit, quite a decent unit. And you can see still how much damage we actually do against them is really quite decent against a probably well-armoured unit. And we're just able to sort of sit back and cut them down. And really, last few of them try and charge at the horses, and yeah, they didn't go so well for them. And of course, similar story for the enemy heroes. Yeah, they died. Rattans are really effective at clearing up stragglers in that sort of situation. I find that's really where they excel. In terms of dealing with enemy heroes on their own like that, the range damage they do is brutally accurate at this sort of close range, and just out damages them far too quickly. This is funny look. Little dual blades got a little bit too surrounded there. So really effective in that sort of situation, and that was quite a lot of damage we did with no losses against a tier 4 unit. You know, that's a sort of a 250 plus leadership unit, those Halberdiers Sergeants, and we just wiped them out. So they can really perform significant kills. Good as they are at killing peasants, that's not all they can do. They can deal with higher tier units as well. So anyway, after that, I pulled back to the supply point, re-ammoed, re-healthed up, got the unit back to full strength, and then I was looking at the C point. And I was thinking kind of what I saw the enemy cavalry unit at the bottom. One, I was sort of tempted, but then I saw the second and I think even maybe a third start to arrive on the scene, and I thought, okay, that's getting too much. You know, I can engage them. A probably good chunk of damage, but it would cost me my unit, and it's just not worth it. Remember, this is a 350 leadership unit. It's a very expensive unit. You're only going to have one unit this good in your roster per battle, and if you throw it away, then you're really doing a disservice to your team. So you do have to be careful in terms of how you play it. You see, even then in that cav charge, that cost me 2 units. I think it probably was not too unworth it because we did a lot more damage in return. Particularly as they retreated, we were able to really get some shots in the back of them there. But you know, mismanagement, mispositioning of this unit is really easy to do. It does do a lot of damage, and while they're okay in melee, if you get hit by a cav charge, you will lose the bulk of the unit, you know, sort of in that one charge. So it's very easy to lose this unit. So the primary thing has to be unit positioning, really keeping an eye on your surroundings, trying to watch out for enemy cav flanking you, enemy infantry flanking you, you know, or a ranged unit sort of adopting a position to start to fire on you. You will go down fast if you start to receive fire, particularly from fire archers and things like that. So that's kind of really what I've been trying to work on with this unit. Hopefully it comes across a little bit in this video. I try and always check around me. You'll see me sort of looking left and right a fair bit, which is me trying to keep some sort of element of situational awareness of kind of what's going on. So then you also get to situations like this where there's a much bigger fight going on. This is where you can see in this sort of situation, I'm a bit nervous now. I don't really, you know, there's a lot of cav in the centre. Don't really know what's going on, quite a lot of enemy infantry. I see some cav sort of coming in on the right there, and I make a mistake here. I pull back, which was the right thing, and then I move back in. You see, it's a really badly timed, and that cost me another 2 units. I think it probably cost me another 1 or 2 in a minute as well. But you can see that mistake. I saw the cav coming, and then for some reason I thought their charge had ended, and I started to move back to provide more fire support. And then I got hit by that tail end of that cav charge. So situational awareness is key with these guys. So anyway, I was thinking about that point and thinking, right, let's pull back to the supply point. But then some peasants came around the corner, and as I love murdering peasants, I just stayed around just to provide a bit of support to these muskets, just so that guy didn't lose any units that he didn't have to. You know, that's another thing where I think these guys are quite great. They're quite a great team support unit. when there's 2 units engaging, you can get there and lend support, lend a bit of assistance. And I think they really are quite good at that. You know, they're a real good team support weapon. And I think that's how you have to play them, with that sort of consideration. How can you help, you know, your guys win that little fight they're in with, you know, while taking less losses. So anyway, I pulled back the supply point again because quite a lot of the unit was damaged. So we've lost sort of 5 units there now. So we're still a fair strength unit, still a 16-man unit. Kind of just thinking about what I want to do. I looked on the map, I looked at the overview, I was thinking about going to C, but not a lot of team support over there, so I thought, okay, well our team is pushing A, we're within a real chance of being able to capturing A, and then we'll start to be putting the tick back on the enemy again, so let's go to A. That's what we really want to capture, because so long as we capture a point, then that's of benefit. So I pull over there and just smash a random pipe militia in the face with my poleaxe, as you do. And then I'm looking around. Again, I was almost too slow here, but I just managed to react in time and get out of the way of that charge there. I think there were some men-at-arms, or possibly some squires. Again, you can see the sort of damage we get in, particularly when you get these flanking shots like that. Almost all the shots went critical. The enemy hero went down really fast. I saw this shortbow initially at first. I thought he was going to be pulling a unit down, and he wasn't, so I kind of just ran him down. Felt bad, but he died. So then I'm thinking now, right, I'm in quite an enclosed space, and there's quite a lot of enemy units turning up. A little bit of cav here around the outside, so always like to get the damage on the cav. You know, I'll always tend to target enemy cavalry as my primary sort of target, because enemy cav is probably the most dangerous thing to me. I can always run away from infantry, no matter how good your Imperial Spear Guard is, no matter how good, you know, your Spear Sergeants or whatever it is, or your Men-at-Arms. I can move quicker than you, even in charge. So I'm always going to be able to get away from you if you start to threaten me. Which is what I do now. You see that longsword hero starts to come up towards me. So I move a little bit out of the way. In the end, I thought, right, let's just pull back. A point's lost. I thought about going to lend some support to the C point. And I also thinking I'm starting to run out of ammo. I always like to keep a little bit of ammo on hand, because I often find, as you're pulling back with these guys, because they just shoot on their own, you can just pull back and forget about them, and they just sort of oozy people as they drive by and grab a few extra kills. It's really quite nice in that way. And that's probably one thing that I enjoy the most about the unit, is the fact that they don't really need much management in terms of their shooting. Unlike an arch unit, which I find you end up managing quite a lot in terms of what or where they're shooting, these guys, by and large, I find I focus only on positioning, and they just shoot. They deal the damage by themselves. They can worry about it themselves. But I can just sort of focus on positioning. So unit of Halberdiers there, you know, absolutely munched through them with the range damage. Even with allied squires at men-at-arms, can't quite tell which ones they are, you know, doing damage to them frontally, we still managed to get sort of at least about half the unit kills on that guy. So the damage against unshielded units like that is really intense. We saw we were hitting for about 1,000, 1,200 per hit. If that was non-critical, if we'd gone around the back, it would have been even more. So I decided to call these guys in. The enemy domain spearman is pretty well broken up, and you can see we just get amongst them and we just rack up a good few kills. They're fine in melee against sort of loose little unit formation units like that. You know, they really will just cut through them. They both slash at them with a saber and shoot at them with a crossbow. It's pretty brutal, really. You know, those domain spearmen in that sort of situation don't really stand a chance. But if you run into anything braced, you know, or any proper defensive units, you will suffer and pay a really high price for that, so you've got to be careful. So that was an interesting, just a bit of an example there where we came up against some enemy Rattan Rangers of their own. I've not found any particularly great way of dealing with them. I think kind of Nelson's approach in this case of just straight at them is kind of best. You get the frontal shooting, which I find sort of just a bit more better. More than likely, if you charge straight at enemy Rattans, they try and run away, so you'll end up critical hitting them with your range damage. So, yeah, straight at them. Just maximum aggression. Go for it against other Rattans, so long as there's not, you know, 3 other cavalry units with them. And just do what damage you can before you pull out. So we get into the fight. I hop off and just go in a bit of hand-to-hand myself. Again, a few more peasants that we're killing. But again, the enemy heroes, you can see the amount of damage we get on them really quite quickly. I call the unit in, and it just kills the guys. This guy thinks he might be able to escape. He hops on his horse. But yeah, we all then... The crossbows reload, and yeah, his horse dies. And it doesn't really go so well for him. And that pretty much spells the end of that game. So, all in all, are they a good unit? Yes. They really are probably the most dominant unit at tier 5 at the moment. They are well worth unlocking. I'd certainly recommend them. And they really are a blast to play. I think they're probably going to end up seeing a small nerf at some point in the future. They probably need it. They are a little bit overpowered at times. But anyway, that's all I've got for you today. We'll certainly be taking another look at this unit in the future once I've got them a bit more leveled up. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, let me know what you think in the comments down below. And of course, subscribe to the channel for a load more Conqueror's Blade content. Thanks, guys.